Hello, my name is Tom Lucero, and I wanted to get something out of the way that I feel like I should have done a long time ago, and it's a topic that's important to me and my children. I wanted to discuss the abductions of my two daughters, Mary and Grace Lucero, and part of a recent fight that I've been having is also not just with my ex Rebecca Montoya, but with her family, it's basically a large portion of her family, but Anthony and Julia Montoya are my children's grandparents. And so lately I've had to fight them in court as well for grandparent visitation. And something that recently had come up and I wanted to basically discuss is, you know, how we're basically still looking for justice. These folks have never, faced any sort of justice or anything like that, and they still pose a huge threat to my children. And so I wanted to basically take a little bit of time to go over a few documents, set the record straight, because even when we go to court, the judge, we recently went to court on March 19th, 2015, and, you know, um, we have a judge, Albert Mitchell Jr., and I gotta say, the guy is really horrible. And if I had to give him a grade on, knowledge of our case and so forth, I'd give him an F. And it's just been, a long ongoing thing, since he's taken over this case. In all honesty, and I'm going to get to some of these aspects, their case should never have been heard because when it comes to, especially Rebecca Montoya, they'll always file like frivolous, um, perjured documents to the court. In their case, they act as though, their direct language is that they shouldn't be punished as, grandparents from seeing my daughters because of a falling out between Rebecca Montoya and myself. Well, the issue is that they helped abduct my children, and that's why I don't want, my children to have anything to do with them because they continue to pose a danger and really disgusting people. They'll lie, they'll, accuse you of the worst things possible, to get their way, and they're just the most disgusting people in my opinion, and I say that because I don't like my daughters to be hurt, even more than they already have been. So, with that being said, this is Anthony and Julia Montoya, and this is just a format where I feel like I can get this point across as smoothly as possible. So, I'll go ahead and just jump right in to some of these documents. And I'm going to go ahead and make a lot of these documents, or actually all of these documents. I try to scan them in a certain order, and I'm actually going to post the full documents so that if anybody has any questions, they can certainly, contact me and ask me any sort of questions. But I'm definitely going to, continue to fight for some justice when it comes to my daughter's situation. Okay, so I want to basically kind of bring up, how hypocritical Anthony and Julia Montoya are. And I'm going to start with like recent events. So this year, 2015, they file a motion for order to show cause because in January I had missed a 4-hour visit, a supervised visit of theirs, because I had no idea that it was actually going on. At the beginning, at the end of 2014, the judge came up with a new court order basically saying that I guess he was going to separate it from being 4 hours. In 2014, towards the end, Rebecca Montoya was allowed to, do supervised visits with her parents, and this was the later part of 2014. And so I'd go to Denver, and we would, all of them would basically see my children, and it would all be together. So beginning of 2015, my girls had a very hard time with these visits. In school they, have documentation of like nightmares and just, problems and so forth. I had no idea that the supervision place was going to basically triple their time. I realized that they were going to double the time, and I was told that it was going to take place on the 24th of, January, but I get a call on January 18th 2015, and it's Linda Schneider who runs the facility, and just a very horrible place. If anybody goes to supervised visits in the Denver metro area, avoid supervision parenting at all costs. But aside from that, the issue is that I get a call, and it's Linda on, around noon on January 18th. She tells me I'm about like 5 minutes late and wants me to call her back immediately. So I do call her back immediately. She never returns my phone call. To this day, I still have not spoken with Linda Schneider after leaving multiple messages. The only way she'll communicate with me is through text messaging. Luckily, it seems like we found a separate place that'll do supervised visits closer, and so that's kind of a little bit of a saving grace there. But moving on to the issue at hand, so there was an unintentional missed visit. So I want to show some of these sort of things. So this is their paperwork brought forth by their attorney, Charles Lakins. Basically says Tomas Lucero did not bring the minor children to the supervised visitation facility as required under the court's order. No justifiable reason exists for his failure to do so. Okay. And again, when Charles Lakins drafted this paperwork, he never reached out to me. The Montoyas never reached out to me. I reached out to Linda, supervision. I called her back right away. I told her, hey, I had no idea this was going to happen. You guys are telling me about, the weekend of the 24th. And so, you guys got to confirm with me these dates and so forth. And that had never happened. Okay. So it was 1 4-hour visit. Okay. And so the Montoyas are asking for, the termination of my parental rights. Okay. And these girls have lived with me. I've had full custody since February 22nd, 2011. So obviously that's over 4 years right now. Okay, and I'm very close with my daughters at this point in time. They're 4 and 5 years old, and we're extremely close. They haven't seen the Montoyas for most of that time up until just this last half of the year. They began to see the grandparents, and then later on in the year, Rebecca herself. And these people have not improved whatsoever. I have no idea how they were barred from seeing these children, and like I said, under Albert Mitchell Jr., they're just constantly rewarded, and they're doing these pretty horrific things, especially on Rebecca's side. But she's always 100% supported by her parents. Okay, so getting back into this, let's look at line number 15. The best interest of the children would be served by the court removing the minor children from custody of the respondent, Tomas Lucero, and placing the children with either their mother or with an appropriate guardian. Yeah, that sounds really responsible, and I'll get into more of these sort of things. Let's see. So it's just interesting. So you go to like where they're petitioning the court for these sort of things. They want a bench warrant issued for my arrest. Let's see. They want me imprisoned. Okay. So we got that. They want my parental rights terminated. They want to award the custody of my minor children to kidnappers. Okay? And so that sounds pretty reasonable. So I'm going to go back in time and give people a little bit of a history lesson, and this is something the Montoyas do not want people to see. And this is something that I do believe that, local authorities within the state of New Mexico, federal officials like the FBI really need to charge the Montoyas with kidnapping and so forth. And I always see these stories where people are always held accountable for past crimes, and this is something that needs to happen. Okay, so I'm going to set the stage for how the grandparents themselves are responsible for approximately 3,504 hours of missed visitation where I had no idea where my children were, when they were court ordered to be with me. And, everybody knows where my children are at with me. And if I miss a visit based on some sort of a problem, it's just they want to throw the book at me, but yet they don't want to bear any responsibility for their actions. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these sort of things. Okay, so it sets the stage here, June 25th, 2010. You can see the date on this. It's an order on contempt. And this is actually against my ex, Rebecca Montoya, who is their daughter. Okay, and line number 2, it says the petitioner, that is actually me, but it's a typo. It should say the respondent, who is Rebecca Montoya, is found in contempt of court. Okay, line number 4 kind of clarifies it a little bit better. It says, in order to make up for the petitioner father's lost visitation with a minor child, and at the time I only had my daughter Mary Lucero, who is currently 5 years old, father shall enjoy visitation beginning on Friday, June 25th, 2010 for 1 week, with exchange back to the mother on Saturday, July 3rd, 2010 at 1:30 p.m. with alternating weeks thereafter every Saturday with exchange at 1:30 p.m. Okay. Let's see. Um, okay, so this kind of sets the stage. Okay, so on July 26th, 2010, okay, I file a motion with the same court in order to show cause. My brief summary on that basically states on Saturday, July 24th, Miss Montoya failed to show up for a child exchange. It is now the 26th of July, and I'm supposed to be with my daughter until July 3rd, looks like. Or 31st, sorry. Let's see. It says this is the second time since our last court date, June 25th, Rebecca has kept Mary from me for days at a time. In addition, there have been 2 instances of stalking and 2 instances of harassment by Miss Montoya since June 25th, when there should have been no contact. And I will do later videos, and you can see on some of these sort of things I'm posting a lot of information, and I'll get to those sort of instances, and I'll focus more on the Rebecca Montoya side of things. But just for expedience, I'm going to go ahead and just push forward with this. Okay, so the judge orders that on July 29th, we will actually have an order to show cause hearing. Okay, as a result, here's an order from that hearing, the results. It says order in contempt, second interim order modifying custody and visitation. Okay, it says the respondent has violated the court's interim order regarding custody and visitation. The respondent is found in contempt of court. This is the respondent's second contempt of court. Okay, and so this is where Anthony Montoya and Julia Montoya come into play. And it basically says, you can see line number 8, exchanges will continue to take place at the City of Las Vegas Police Department. Okay, the visits between Rebecca and myself were so egregious and crazy, because every time we'd meet somewhere, she'd accuse me of something new, and we had to be somewhere that was like, had surveillance cameras or something going on, because she was always, she'd say that I was either groping her, or it was just nonsense all the time. And that's how I, began to get like more custody time. Went from like 2 hours every other day to, at this point, having her week on, week off. Okay, and she's 1 year old at this time. Yeah, just turned 1. Okay, line number 9 says Anthony Montoya, father of respondent, will transport the child for the exchange. Line number 10, in the event Anthony Montoya is unable to transport the child, maternal grandmother, who's Julia, will be responsible for the transportation. Okay, so you can see that's where they come into play. Now this is where it gets a little bit interesting. August 9th, 2010 is when my daughter Mary was first abducted. I was at an appointment with with our daughter and our court-appointed guardian ad litem, and both Rebecca and myself both had to meet with Danelle Smith, who is in Las Vegas, who's our guardian ad litem appointed by the court. And Danelle Smith made it expressly clear that we had to appear by ourselves without our daughter present. And Rebecca apparently followed me to this visit, or to the attorney's office when I was behind closed doors with the attorney. She asked the secretary, who's listed in this police report. Her name is, let's see here. Let's see. Her name is Catalicia Barr. She asked Catalicia, whether I was there, and Catalicia, I guess not knowing any better, confirmed that I was there. Rebecca then asked, is my daughter there? And she said no. So Rebecca went directly to my house, where my current girlfriend, Nicole Duran, and I lived, and she was watching my daughter, and I guess Rebecca was pounding on the door hysterically. My girlfriend, Nicole Duran, opened the door thinking that it was me. Rebecca pushes herself inside and then claims that if, I'm not with my daughter, she has to be. Then she begins to go on this like tirade where she starts breaking my things, gathering up things that I have for my daughter at my daughter's room, takes off with my daughter, and, you can see on this police report that she's charged with aggravated stalking, custodial interference, burglary, criminal damage to property. It should have also been larceny as well. So anyway, as a result, there's a warrant issued for her arrest. The following day, she turns herself in, and this is the following day, August 10th, 2010, she's at the magistrate court of San Miguel. She turns herself in, and they release her on conditions, release. Her bail set at 5,000, and they give her an unsecured appearance bond apparently, but she has conditions, and some of those things, are that she's going to follow the laws and all that good stuff like that. I obey all federal, state, and local criminal and traffic laws. Okay. Well, the same day that she does that, she goes and she gets a passport based on fraudulent information, a forged or fraudulently obtained passport and all the documentation, because I had no idea that she was actually out there doing this for my daughter. So you can see that she had the intent to kidnap my daughter right away, and you can see the date right here. Date of issue is August 10, 2010. Okay, so the very same day that she's, day after she breaks in my place, abducts my daughter for the first time. This is a Monday, I'm supposed to have her for the entire week up until Saturday, and right away she goes and gets this passport. You can see later on her explanation for the passports is pretty hilarious. She says that she got these passports because she got one for my other daughter too, that she got them because she's going to go see her friend getting married in Hawaii, and you obviously do not need a passport to go to Hawaii. It's part of the United States. Okay, and so and I'll get back to this. This is my youngest daughter, so you can see here different dates prior to the main abduction that she's preparing. Okay, and so the next document that I have here is a police report from the Las Vegas police department, and it's dated September 18th, 2010. And this is on a Saturday. I go in there because, again, Anthony Montoya, and it was hell on earth before this, before the abduction of my daughter right here, to actually get him to be pleasant about the visits. He'd usually trap her, my daughter Mary's legs against his body with his arm, and it was just always, Jesus Christ, with these people is insane. Getting them just to set my daughter down so I can pick her up and go on our way, and have some sort of like peace or whatever. It's just always nonstop craziness. So the point is that I want to just get to some of these sort of things that are written down, and I'm going to try to make it as quick as I can. Anybody that wants to review the full documents, by all means, read them, ask questions, all that good stuff, okay? But here's this portion that's highlighted: investigation. And this is Officer Garza. During my investigation, I received and viewed documents from the courts that T. Lucero provided to me, stating in fact that a child exchange should occur as documented on the court orders. I called R. Montoya via telephone and advised her about the court orders. She stated to me that she wasn't going to meet T. Lucero because such orders were not valid. Okay, that's nice and interesting, huh? She stated that anyway, she wasn't responsible to make the exchange, that her father was to do it, but he was out of town. Okay, and so it just shows how they just absolutely do not care about court orders. They don't care. Okay, and fast forward into today, and yet they want the book thrown at me for not showing up, and this is something that was unintentional. Okay, the police were not involved, and I wasn't contesting anything. Okay, so here, as far as following the court orders. So here comes a GAL report, which is the Guardian ad litem, completed by Danelle Smith. This is actually 10 days later from the police report. This is September 28, 2010. And these are some very interesting quotes here. So this is page 10, and I think that there's maybe like a total of 14 pages, and I'll include the entire documents. But what I want to just show on this is it says that Rebecca is totally supported by her sister Lydia Tencio and her mother Julia Montoya in doing only what they feel is best for the child. Since Lydia is a licensed counselor, she strongly feels that they must do what they consider is best for the child no matter what the court orders. Julia Montoya was very frank in telling me that she feels that if they just keep fighting and making it hard for Tom to have visitation, that he will get frustrated and give up his rights to the child. And trust me, these people are a damn nightmare, and they'll accuse you of the worst possible things ever, and you'll get a little bit of a glimpse of that. they'll do the worst things possible, and that's what makes this whole thing funny. Is that they want justice when it's convenient for them. They want the court orders followed when it's convenient for them. So I hope they enjoy this video. He goes on to say, it is not clear to me whether any of the three of them have any appreciation for the power of the judge in this case, to take a position that they will not only or not do what the judge ordered because they do not feel that is not best for the child seems to be a train wreck waiting to happen. I'm not convinced that I was able to bring home to them the power of the court, the power that the court has in relation to the child. I caution them that the court could give Tom full custody if they keep up their attempts at ending Tom's visitation. Okay. Let's see here. It goes on to the next page, and I just want to read this highlighted portion. And like I said, the whole thing can be read. The court needs to get control of Rebecca. It is disturbing that she and her mother and her sister take the position that they will only do what they feel is right for the child, no matter what the court rules. Rebecca has now verbalized that she does not recognize that Tom should have visitation, or does recognize that Tom should have visitation with Mary, but she still says that she can't negotiate a change from the visitation that the judge orders. Okay. So, moving on, this is just a little thing that I kind of just drew up just to kind of visualize what I'm kind of talking about. So, the abduction on August 9, 2010 begins right here. So the X's represent basically days that I'm without my daughter, that I'm supposed to be with her. Okay, and it encompasses basically, 2 months where I missed, visits because Anthony and Julia Montoya would not, bring my daughter to me. I understand that their daughter broke in and abducted my daughter, and she's her own person, but they are obligated, and they know that they are required to bring my daughter to me. So here we go. So you can see that all these different dates are missed. You can see all these weeks, they're alternating weeks, and these are accurate. Okay, this is when the GAL report comes out, and this is our court date where I finally see my daughter, and the craziness continued to ensue at that point in time, and we'll go over some of those sort of things as well. But I wanted to illustrate that during this period for the first abduction of Mary, 27 days were taken from me. 27 days where I had no idea where my daughter was at, where the Montoyas, all of them, would not follow any of the court orders. Okay, so that equates to 648 hours, and yet for 4 hours, which was not intentional, they want me to be arrested for 6 months, they want my parental rights taken from me, and they want custody of the children, they abducted. So it's kind of a real joke, isn't it? And you can see where this is going, and it only gets worse from here. Okay, so you move forward to September 30th, 2010, okay? So the day after that hearing, the judge grants an order granting emergency motion for custody of the minor child, okay? The petitioner, and that is me, is granted physical custody of the child, Mary Lucero. Law enforcement officer shall assist petitioner in obtaining physical custody of the child. Okay? And now it's been elevated to we go to a supervised facility, and Rebecca is required for the expense because of all the problems that she's created. Okay? Dated October 4th, 2010, and signed by Judge Aragon. Okay, and then here we go into another order that, during this time, 10 days prior to this order coming out, so right in between all these, dates and so forth, my second daughter, Grace Lucero, was born, and she was born on October 8th, 2010. Okay, so 10 days after that, and this is all happening rapidly here, there's an order that comes out. It says, order to continue hearing on emergency motion for custody of minor child. Okay, so obviously that order is still in effect. Let's see. Here we go. And we'll just go to the highlighted portions. Number 4 says, exchanges shall take place at Somos Familia. Respondent or her family will be responsible to arrange for the exchanges, and respondent will be responsible for the fees. Okay, so that respondent is Rebecca. It says there will be zero tolerance for any violations. Okay, Judge Aragon had to make that explicit in this order because of all the problems that the Montoyas caused. Number 9, it says any further disruptions or outbursts by the family members will be considered evidence of instability and unsafe conditions of the family, and can be considered not in the child's best interest. Okay, and this is the Montoya's family. I had I didn't grow up in New Mexico. I was there basically stationed for a job with the New Mexico State Police, and so her family was all concentrated in that area, and they would show up and you know basically try to get their way by making comments and try to insult and just try to uh, try to railroad the judge into making like a favorable decision on their part. Okay, so this is where it just gets so disgusting. We had a hearing approximately February 8th, 2011, and it basically encompassed like these kind of like a basic merits hearing for child custody. And what was taken from that, and I was disappointed in that because I was asking for full custody of my children, was that it was going to be basically 50-50. And they were telling me that I should consider myself, in a sense, lucky because my youngest daughter, Rebecca Montoya would pull out all these, you know, tricks and everything else she could under the sun and say, oh, well, my daughters are breastfeeding, so they can't be with him whatsoever. They can't, whatever. So she could violate all these laws, but she was okay because she was breastfeeding and so forth. Well, Judge Aragon gave us basically still week on, week off, and Rebecca had hired, this lady named Teresa Miller, who was a, horrible, person, basically paid to, give a result, a recommendation in our case, and basically said that if they're taken away from their mother for a certain amount of time, that they can have some sort of psychological conditions, could turn out to be sociopaths or something, and Teresa Miller would get upset with me if I asked her. I said, well, what are the chances of my daughters turning out to be sociopaths if they're raised by one, being her mother? And she didn't like that, and she wouldn't answer that question. But anyway, I didn't like my daughters to be split up like that, but I was fighting for full custody of them because I knew that them being around the Montoyas was going to be a horrible, horrible life for them if they turned out anything like them. So here's what they did. Knowing that I was pushing for full custody, that I had just, the judge was granting, full custody for Mary, and they continue to push and do all these sort of things. And let me back up a bit. So going back to December, knowing that the judge had granted me full custody of Mary, and you can see that order, on December 10th, I believe, here we go, Rebecca goes and obtains this passport for Grace. And she's exactly 2 months old at the time, and she obtains this passport without my knowledge, without my permission, by lying on these forms to gain, these passports for my children that I had no idea what was about to happen. So, fast forward back to where we are, okay? And so you can see how this is all kind of unfolding. And so they're not getting their way through their lies and not showing up for visits and everything else and all the lies and craziness that they're doing. So they stoop to a new level. So on February 11th, 2011, they accuse me of criminal sexual contact of a minor. Okay, they accuse me of molesting my daughter Mary. They're not showing up for visits, and they're saying all these sort of things, like they mentioned that they mentioned to my daughter that they're going to bring her to visit with me, and she broke out in these rashes, and it was just just more craziness, and it was just horrible for my daughter to be in this situation. And they actually had these horrible pictures, and I need to publish these pictures because they're incredibly horrible pictures of my daughter. They must have put something topical on her skin to make her just really turn red and all over her body, and it was just really horrible. But basically, you can see the synopsis. It says, Miss Rebecca Montoya reported that her daughter Mary Montoya may have been sexually molested. Okay, and this is a report completed by the San Miguel Sheriff's Department. And I want to get specifically into what the grandparents, Anthony and Julia Montoya, said, because that's who we are discussing today. It says, Anthony said he heard Mary say that one time that Tom hits her on the head, and he also heard Mary say that Nikki hits her, which is Nicole Duran, my girlfriend. Anthony went on to tell me that one day he was sitting on the couch when his wife called him into the bathroom where Mary was getting a bath, and Mary said that she had a yaya and pointed towards her vaginal area. According to Anthony, Mary was then asked by his wife, "Who gave you your yaya?" And Mary said, "Dad." Anthony said Mary puts cream on her unclothed dolls. Anthony said Mary does not want to go with her father during child exchanges. Anthony said that he heard Rebecca tell Mary the other day, before she was supposed to go with Tom, that she was going with her father, and Mary broke out in a rash and became very attached to Rebecca and would not go with anyone else. And, it says for exact wording, refer to tape statement. Same thing with Julia. Julia told me that Mary does not want to go with Tom during the exchanges. Julia said Mary has complained about her back hurting. According to Julia, Mary told her that Nikki and Dada hit her. Julia said she has never seen any bruising or marks on Mary that would indicate Tom was physically abusing Mary. Julia said Mary is in constant pain and complaining of a yaya. There is much more on this interview, but nothing pertaining to the allegations of sexual abuse. For exact wording, refer to tape statement. Okay? And this is something where Rebecca took my daughter for a SANE exam at St. Vincent's Hospital in Santa Fe, without law enforcement, without CYFD, presence, and they conducted an SANE exam, intrusive SANE exam on my 1-year-old daughter, and did not find any sort of evidence of any sort of, molestation, abuse, anything. And just complete, this is just disgusting. If I would have done that, I would be entirely ashamed of myself. I'd not deserve to be around these children whatsoever, but these people are, scum of the earth in my opinion. And you'll continue to see why. Okay? So, fast forward a few days, and, even when we went to court, they brought this up in February, and it got them nowhere. Nowhere with the police, nowhere with CYFD, nowhere with the SANE folks. Their accusations were just, looked at like, here you go again with more false allegations, more lies. So on February 18th, Rebecca Montoya files for, probably at this time, like about the 6th false restraining order against me. And she does it in an area where we have no business at, and that's Santa Fe. And she's supposedly staying in some shelter, Esperanza shelter for battered women, which she later worked at. And the way I really speak my mind about these sort of things, because it's horrible that these people help out certain people without even validating any sort of facts or like following up, and they actually, in this case, assist child abductors. But anyway, so she stays there. So she can gain like residency, which is a requirement for a restraining order, and basically, says that I'm molesting my children, abusing her, whatever the hell else. Who knows at this point? Because to date, there's probably been about 17 different ones by Miss Montoya. Okay, and so most of them, you can see that since I have had nothing to do with her, my children haven't seen her, nothing. And this is just a common tactic, and so she'll go to different jurisdictions and she'll get these restraining orders. So February 18, 2011, she goes and she gets another false restraining order. My attorney, Margaret Kegel, at the time, and I file, a motion to quash that. It is granted. We also file for, another, ex parte order for emergency custody. Okay, so this is where this order comes in, and it was granted. Ex parte order granting emergency motion for custody of minor child. Okay, it says petitioner is granted physical custody of the children Mary Lucero and Grace Lucero. Law enforcement officer shall assist petitioner in obtaining physical custody of the child. Respondent is granted supervised visitation of the minor child at Somos Familia, arranged by Tim Gallegos. Okay, so Rebecca gets word that her little plan didn't work. All her little stunts didn't work. She's got those passports that she had applied for, months in advance. So what does she do? February 23rd, 2011, the day after, she pays cash, and she goes to Portugal. She leaves from, I guess she drives to Amarillo, catches a flight to Newark, New Jersey, and from there she goes to Lisbon, Portugal. Okay, and the reason she had my children at this point in time was on approximately February 15th. Remember that we recently went to court around like February 8th. The judge, Judge Abigail Aragon, I felt, really had made her mind before we even like entered the courtroom. But we had hours, maybe 2-3 hour long court hearing, and she decided that we were going to have a 1 week on, 1 week off type situation again, now with both children. And, you know, I was told that by my attorney even before the hearing started, so I was upset that that's kind of like the way it ended up, because I really felt like, you know, you can tell just how dangerous these people were with their new molestation accusations and just the nonstop, you know, lies and, you know, BS that they were pulling. You know, they're just a huge danger to my children. So, as you can see, you know, I was entirely right. They, on February 23rd, abduct my children. Okay, so here's, you know, 5 months where my children are absolutely missing. You can see all these X's representing the days that I'm not seeing my children, that I'm supposed to be with according to the court order. Okay, so it goes through June 20th, okay, 2011. Okay, so I kind of marked on the calendar how many days of missed time. So again, I go back to the first day and I calculate how many days I actually missed. Okay, so from, you know, February 23rd to June 20th, and I apologize, I got off on a tangent on because of that court hearing. The reason Rebecca had these children is that it was a week on, week off type situation. On February 15th, 2011, Rebecca was supposed to bring the children back to me, and she failed to do that yet again. And so, and I was supposed to begin my week. She obviously never showed up. She tried her little latest restraining order trick. It did not work, and it, you know, the judge had ordered that I be granted, you know, full custody of my children in the interim, and she took off. So when you add those days up, it's 119 days on the second abduction. Okay, and it equates to 2,856 hours of total missed time. And this is where, you know, turns out my children were actually in Portugal of all places, okay, across the Atlantic. And so that, you know, between the two abductions, that's 3,504 hours where I had no idea where my children were. They were literally abducted, and they were aided entirely, you know, by Anthony and Julia Montoya. You know, they were selling her vehicle for her, sending her money. Anthony Montoya was with her when she was arrested, you know, trying to sneak back into the country. These people knew exactly where she was, would not cooperate with law enforcement. Other family members and friends were using her EBT and WIC card, you know, ripping off the state of New Mexico, you know, just constantly while she was gone, you know, in communication with her. Her sister is buying her airline tickets, you know, with cash, and nobody's held accountable. Her sister Lydia Atencio. So, and that's why it's just completely egregious that they want me held accountable for 4 hours of unintentional missed time. Okay, and so here comes this video, and this is, you know, I just put this up right here, but I will actually just play the video right now so people can see what I'm talking about. So this is a video, and I believe the date on it is actually, let's see, July 7th, 2011. And Anthony Montoya was arrested with her. This is Anthony Montoya arrested with her on June 20, 2011, as she's trying to sneak back into the country. Rebecca had 2 warrants at the time, and there was an NCIC hit for her only. For some reason, you know, my children were not entered into NCIC as missing persons, which should have been a first step, and you know, their case was bungled from the beginning, and that's why I still continue to ask for justice, because these people have never been held accountable. So in New Mexico, apparently you can abduct children and run amok and still continue to cause problems, still file frivolous, you know, petitions to the court for, you know, grandparent rights when you abduct children, and it's all well and good. So let me just go ahead and play this and continue on with this little presentation.
A Las Vegas mother accused of taking off with her 2 daughters instead of handing them over to their father as a court ordered is now behind bars.
Today, her parents are pleading for help for their daughter and their 2 granddaughters. Christina Rada spoke with the grandparents. She has tonight's big story.
29-year-old Rebecca Montoya is behind bars in San Miguel County Jail. Her parents say Montoya's 2 daughters, 2-year-old Mary and 9-month-old Grace, are with their father, State Police Officer Tomas Lucero. He has custody. Montoya's parents say she had good reason to leave.
My daughter got very worried about sending the babies back to Officer Lucero.
In April, Lucero came to KOB asking for help finding his daughters. It turns out Montoya was in Portugal.
I was able to fly over there and talk with her and convince her that she had a good case, that all the evidence, she had too much evidence against Lucero for her to be running away.
Montoya's father says June 20th, she was detained at a Tennessee airport and little Mary and Grace turned over to Lucero. The Montoyas say their daughter left because she was afraid for her girls and herself.
He has always used his police badge to scare us, to do whatever he wants.
Now they have no contact with their granddaughters and don't know where to turn.
Baby Mary, this is Grandpa Tony. We'll see you soon. I love you, baby. And take care of baby Grace. Take care of Sister Grace, okay?
Christina Rada, KOB, Eyewitness News 4.
Montoya accused Lucero of breaking her arm outside a police station about a year ago. Lucero denies that allegation. We're waiting to hear from the Valencia County District Attorney to see where the case stands now.
A Las Vegas mother
Okay, so continuing on with the documents here, and you know, the news, you gotta love it because they never actually fact check anything. They never actually look into these documents like I'm providing here that are actually, you know, out there, public and available. And it's funny because when you look at that video and so forth, and you see the Montoyas, and they're saying now that I threatened them with my police badge somehow, it's a joke. When he says that she had so much evidence, they never produced any sort of evidence, you know, that somehow I was some sort of a threat or anything else to her. It's just continued like false allegations. So you can see where I'm getting at. And I'm going to lead into their, you know, falsified petition for, you know, grandparent rights, because like I said, they basically state that, you know, they shouldn't be punished as grandparents for falling out, you know, between Rebecca and myself, acting like they didn't do anything to where I would, you know, there'd be, you know, animosity or anything else like that. Because if there was, obviously they wouldn't stand a chance as far as, you know, grandparent rights if I'm a fit father and all these sort of things like that. So it's just, it's hilarious that, you know, people don't hold these people, you know, accountable for their words and their actions. So you can see here, July 12th, 2011 is orders setting conditions release, okay? And this is for Rebecca Montoya and $25,000 bail. And you can see that there's several conditions. I will avoid all contact with Tom Lucero or children and witnesses in this case. You know, further goes on to say like zero tolerance and so forth. So she's not allowed to see, you know, have contact when they file for their petition for grandparent rights. She's living in their household, you know, like on probation and conditions release and all these sort of things. Okay. Then on October 14, 2011, through a different court, this is, you know, Union County Magistrate Court, because of, you know, continued stalking harassment, you know, she's again arrested with a $9,000, you know, cash or surety bond, okay, which further goes on to basically say that she cannot have any sort of, you know, contact with me or the kids or anything else like that, you know, to avoid all contact with alleged victim, which is myself, you know, and her family, not harass myself or my children. And it was just, I'll get more into it with Rebecca, but these people are insane. Now, for some reason, when I scan this document, this is the second guardian ad litem report provided by Danelle Smith. This is page 12, and for some reason, due to the highlighting, it just completely went over it. So I've got a copy here that wasn't scanned. So this is page 12, same document. Okay, so you can see where the highlights are. And it basically says, I also met with Rebecca's parents, Julia and Tony Montoya, jointly in my office. They both deny that they had anything to do with helping Rebecca leave to Portugal. And again, I want to get back to that real quick. You know, several police reports, and I should pull those up, and I will, you know, where they refused to cooperate with the San Miguel Sheriff's Department when they were handling the case, New Mexico State Police when they were handling the case. You know, Anthony Montoya, as you've seen in the thing, was arrested. I mean, not arrested. He was there when Rebecca was arrested at the Memphis, Tennessee airport. And, you know, he knew all along where she was at. He sold her vehicle, sent her money, in constant contact with her. And, you know, and that's the thing, you know. And that's why it's so egregious that these people are not held accountable, because when you look at the actual laws, okay, Okay, so if you've got a family member that's an immediate family member, and let's say they have a warrant for doing something in the past, let's say they, you know, maybe robbed somebody for $100 in the past, the action is done and completed. If they're your immediate family member in New Mexico, you do not have to, the police come to your house, you don't have to cooperate with them. You can say, simply they're not there, and you would not be held, liable for, aiding and abetting because they're your immediate family member. If they were your friend, you would be. If, turns out they were, hiding in your house and you're hiding a felon or whatnot with a warrant. Now, when it comes to the act of, child abduction, which this was, and you send them money, you lie to police, you're constantly, aware of where they're at, you're with them when they're arrested and so forth, you cannot help your family member actively commit crimes. And, so you're charged with the actual crime as far as like kidnapping and whatever else goes along with it, as well as accessory and conspiracy, which are also felonies. And those are additional charges. So just to clarify those sort of things, that they did commit several crimes, several felonies, and they need to be held accountable for these sort of things. Okay, so getting back to this document. Also met with Rebecca's parents, Julia and Tony Montoya, jointly in my office. They both denied they had anything to do with helping Rebecca leave to Portugal. They said that Rebecca and their other daughter, Lydia, were secretive about what their plan was. Okay, and I'm just going to highlight or skip to the highlighted portions. There's a lot of, you got to read these documents. This one's probably about 16 pages, but it's just, you can see how, egregious these people are. It says Rebecca's parents said they didn't know where Rebecca was for weeks after she left. Eventually, Rebecca called them, but she did not tell them where she was. Later, when she decided that she wanted to come home, she told them that she was in Portugal. They have spoken more about the move to Portugal with their daughter, Lydia, but declined to comment further. Okay, so, they don't mention, I sold her vehicle and sent her money and all these sort of things. Damn well they knew where she was at. And when she called them, they could have simply called law enforcement and so forth, because if they're really concerned about these grandchildren, they'd probably think, and at this point, we had gone down and, or actually not at this point, but, it was later found that Rebecca has 3 different, mental disorders, personality disorders, and, they can't even be treated with medication. So, if they were concerned about their granddaughters, they would have wanted them home and so forth, and wanted to, at least know that they were safe and be able to actually fight for some sort of visitation if that's what they really wanted. Okay, so I wanted to get to, okay, so I guess I'll read some of this portion right here. Both of Rebecca's parents feel that Judge Aragon left Rebecca no choice but to take the matter into her own hands. Her father claimed that there was an illegal ex parte communication between Tomas's attorney, Judge Aragon, and the judge in Santa Fe case. They told me about Rebecca going to a domestic violence shelter in Santa Fe after suffering abuse from Tomas. Again, what abuse? Rebecca's parents told me that she had been saving her money and used that to make the trip to Portugal. Towards the end, they did send her some money. Her father did talk to her about coming home, but she made up her own mind about going to Portugal. They felt that Rebecca needed this time away to give her time and space to think. Eventually, Rebecca came to the conclusion that she had no reason to run. Rebecca's mom felt that Rebecca has a lot of evidence against Tomas, and Rebecca was getting very frustrated because the law was doing nothing about these incidents. Again, no evidence whatsoever. Okay, and it says Rebecca's father eventually did go to Portugal to help Rebecca bring the children back. After he got there, Rebecca wanted to delay their return by a week. He was there with Rebecca and the girls for about 10 days before flying home. Rebecca had a real nice condo-like home in Portugal and had everything that she needed. There were markets close by, and she had some nice friends that she met there that were really helping Rebecca. Okay, so my question is, for 10 days, you're actually in, Portugal. You're across the Atlantic Ocean, and it doesn't occur to you, maybe I should call the authorities because my daughter has warrants that I'm aware of, and I should at least let them know that, the children are safe, and, comply with law enforcement on that side to, make sure that, they were returned safely, and that, we complied with the laws and so forth like that. And of course, it wasn't about that. They wanted to, sneak back into the country and continue hiding because they knew that law enforcement on this side was pathetic. They weren't actually doing their job. So, why be over that way when they could be, at home just running around, sneaking around. Okay. So you can see like more for, further allegations. It's hilarious. And it goes on to say, as to Tomas's parents, Julia and Tony told me one of their concerns is that their mother is taking medication for depression and the dad is an alcoholic. My dad hasn't drank in, probably about 14, 15 years at this point. But they then started telling me that Tomas's father is most likely a sex offender. They told me that there was a photo and registration on the Colorado Sex Offender Registry under the name Lawrence Lee Lucero. And that's not my father's name. My dad's name is Lawrence Lucero, but his middle name starts with an S, and it's definitely not Lee. And they thought that was Tomas's father. They had not actually met Tomas's father, but Tomas had told Rebecca that he didn't speak to his father for 10 years, and they were wondering why. And it goes on, just horrible allegations. But it basically says that, that somehow my dad, molested my brother or something like that, and, so Danelle Smith, she actually goes to, the actual sex offender registry, and she prints it out, and the date of birth on this individual was 1973. Well, I was born in 1981, so my dad would have been, 8 years old, and this is the person that they're adamant. And they didn't just go to, the guardian ad litem with this. They went to, the Union County Sheriff's Department. They went, all over, where I was living in Clayton, moved away from the situation, and they're going to everybody, CYFD, claiming that somehow, my dad was this, sex offender on this registry, and his date of birth was 1973, and it's just, these people just do not give up. And so you can see why my children should not have anything to do with these people. They're disgusting human beings. So that's, part of this report right here. Okay, so you can see that's where, for some reason, it was kind of blacked out here. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and get to the second set. Didn't want to scan everything in once. Okay. And this is still the same report. Just some of the stuff had been actually crossed out on that, and that's why I went to that actual one that we could actually read the text that was highlighted. So this is the next document, and this is their actual, part of their petition for grandparent rights. And so, or actually, this is our response, Margaret Kegel and mine. And you can read through this, and it basically just points out these, crazy facts like, why are these people able to apply for grandparent visitation? Line number 7 basically starts off with a lot of these facts. The counter defendants, who are Anthony and Julia Montoya, were materially and substantially involved in assisting Rebecca Montoya in planning and execution of her crime. Counter defendants, while knowing the location of minor children, refused to assist law enforcement and lied to law enforcement about the whereabouts of the children. He goes into all these different things, and it says, just to spare a little bit of time, it basically says that, there's 3 different courts that bar, Rebecca from having contact with the children, in addition to, her family. And it lists the various different court cases in different jurisdictions. Okay, and some of those are those, orders to show cause, and Rebecca at this time is living with them. So it's just another way to circumvent the court orders, and you'll see that in Rebecca's case, she's a pro at trying to circumvent court orders. If she has to make up her own, if she has to get, temporary orders of protection out of different jurisdictions that have no idea who we are and everything else, because you need absolutely no proof. You can just go in there and make up an allegation, and they'll give you a temporary order which grants custody of children. It's really a horrible situation, and needs to be revised. Okay, so this is where it gets pretty interesting. So the Montoyas can file their initial, petition for grandparent rights, and you can see this is May 7, 2012, based on these, fraudulently, uh, put forth documents, put forth in bad faith, and like I was saying, this is their words. It says, this matter arises out of a falling out between petitioners, counter-respondents Anthony and Julie Montoya's daughter, Rebecca Montoya, and respondent counter-petitioner Tomas Lucero. Lucero and Rebecca Montoya are the biological parents of 2 minor children. Lucero and Rebecca Montoya have pending legal battles against each other involving the minor children. There's also other litigation pending between the estranged couple. Okay. And it basically says, some of these feelings have been exchanged back and forth between Lucero and Rebecca Montoya. However, Lucero is asking the court to penalize the petitioners for wanting to see their grandchildren. They're kidnappers. And there's plenty of facts that I just showed right here where these people make up these crazy allegations, just one after another that are new, when you don't even see these people, and it's just constant. Here's another document that I put forth that it just shows in August 22nd, 2012, this case is kind of moving along, and where this is a scheduling order. Well, they don't even produce like all the witnesses and all the information that I'm asking for as far as like discovery. I submit my portion of it, and they don't have to comply with any of these things, and it seems like they're just constantly rewarded. So it's just, all around pretty disgusting, but this is basically my take on it. The Anthony and Julie Montoya want these court orders followed when it's convenient for them, and it's unacceptable. They need to be held accountable. They're always trying to assist their daughter in all these various ways. Last year, 2014, Rebecca Montoya goes and she gets a restraining order out of Jefferson County, Colorado, and claims that somehow we have this phantom phone call and I don't talk to her on the phone. And she says that somehow I threatened to kill her, kill the kids, and kill myself. And like I said, I'm living in Colorado at this point. I moved away to get some sort of justice. And I have a mailing address that's in Jefferson County, Colorado, but I lived in Denver County. So, because of her accusation, she gets this court order, and it grants her custody of my children, who she hasn't seen in, at that point, 3 years. So, anyway, when you get a temporary restraining order, you have to go to court within two weeks. So approximately a week later, we have a court date, and I have to go and defend myself. Rebecca Montoya gets arrested, but the point of the story is that Anthony and Julie Montoya were there, and they completely, supported their daughter in it. They don't say, hey, well, why are you getting this, obviously, perjured, document and everything else, and, why are you doing this and that, and lying about all this stuff is not going to help you out, because Rebecca had to submit, court paperwork basically outlining, let me just go ahead and I'm going to pause this and pull up this document so people can see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so I just went ahead and pulled up this document real quick so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So during this week, she went and she changed her name like 3 different times. She actually went to the Albuquerque court to file for a separate custody case to try to get, a separate case, I guess, going to circumvent our current court orders. But you can see that she puts Rebecca Aragon Montoya, and during this week she changed her name approximately 3 different times. Let's see, so she, lists me as a restrained person, so she, let's see, and the point that I want to get to is this, what I like about Colorado's restraining order is they have you fill out this affidavit basically talking about the current situation. See, this is something that and this is somebody I don't have any contact with. It says, Tom threatened that I would never see my children again, and that if I tried to pick them up, he would kill them, and then kill himself. This occurred telephonically. Okay, there's no record of any sort of phone call or anything else. It's all, BS. And so this is exactly what she does. Accused me of rape. I mean, Jesus Christ, like this, and I'm gonna get more into all those sort of things. It's just hilarious, like how many times She's trying to accuse me of all these different things: rape, child molestation, domestic violence, threatening to kill her, and oh my god, just doesn't end. So anyway, my point is, getting back to this is what I like about Colorado: affidavit regarding children. And so let's see. Okay, line number 3 is interesting, and this is something that she has to have like verified. She has to have notarized and everything else. So this is an official court document. Okay, so there's obviously crimes for forging these documents or providing false information to the court. It says the above named children have lived with the following persons and in the following places within the last 5 years. Okay, so it says Rebecca S. Montoya, both Mary and Grace, since birth, mother. Okay, well, that's kind of interesting because at this point she hadn't seen him she hadn't had custody of him for 3 years, and they've been living with me. Okay. Number 4, a legal action for dissolution of marriage or civil union, legal separation of paternity, or allocation of parental responsibilities, decision making, and parenting time with the above named children identified in the action has not been filed. Okay, so county where case has been filed. Okay, at this point there's 2 cases. There's our regular custody case and the grandparent case, and so she refuses to list those because she doesn't want the court authorities in Colorado to find those out. Okay, so she lies there. She puts, I have not participated as a party or witness or any other capacity in any other court proceedings concerning custody of or visitation or parenting time with the above named children in this or any other state. Okay, so she actually puts our court case, but she puts closed case, and it was not closed. To this day, in 2015, it's not closed. So again, she lies on that. She puts, I do not know of any other court proceedings that could affect this proceeding, including proceedings concerning enforcement of prior orders, domestic violence abuse, protective restraining orders, termination of parental rights, or adoption. And so she puts all these sort of things on here. Battery assault on household member. She puts something that is not related to our case, like whatsoever. Okay. And she puts, I do not know of any person not a party to the proceeding who has physical custody of the claims, rights, or parental responsibilities, legal custody. She actually puts her parents only. And at this point in time, they had no sort of visitation, anything. No supervised visits, nothing. Okay. And line number 8, I do not understand that I have a continuing duty to or she puts, I do, sorry, it's confusing the way to put it. I do understand that I have a continuing duty to inform the court of any custody proceedings concerning the children in this or any other state when I obtain such information during this proceeding. It says, okay, so here's her signature. Okay, here it is, notarized, an official document, and this was, let's see if they put the date right here. This is early January 2014. January 3rd, 2014. So you can see, and then when we show up to court, January 10th, 2014, her parents, like I said, were there supporting her entirely. Her dad said that she just didn't know the technique. Rebecca was thrown in jail for 5 days, and it's just ridiculous that these people are able to be around my children. So I'm going to continue to push for justice. Please contact me with any questions. Please take a look at these documents if this concerns you. This is basically, something that I want some of the people that are involved in our case to basically see. It's not for the general public, really, just for, unless they're interested, but more or less for people that, need a little bit of a, history lesson on what's kind of gone on and some of these egregious things that have taken place. So thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll achieve some sort of justice for my daughters. Thank you again.